Hi everyone, welcome back to the Sports Breakdown once again. So today we thought of discussing about the Australian squad analysis because Australia play their first match tomorrow actually at 6 a.m. IST or 10:30 a.m. Australian Standard Time against Oman, and they begin their preparation tomorrow. And plus we'll be discussing about Group B squad analysis as well. So we've got Jack from the WW podcast. It's been such a long time bringing him in, but it's great to have him back. Jack, how you been? It's been about 10 to 11 months since I brought you in. It's been a long time since I've been consistently doing lives as well. But how you been doing and your channel as well?
Oh, thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back. No, we've done a lot of things in that time since we've last spoke, and the channel's done really well. The podcast has done really well. So I'm doing great. It's couldn't be better.
Yeah. All right, so let's get on to the video right now. So we'll discuss about the Australian cricket squad ahead of the 2020 World Cup and analyze a bit about it. So as we know, Australia are going to face Oman tomorrow. So first thought for mine comes in, why Marsh going to captain this 2020 squad? Because Marsh has been captaincy. We've seen how Pat Cummins has been doing in the IPL and even in the other two formats as well. But your thoughts, Jack, especially Marsh, given this responsibility, and it's his first assignment in ICC tournament given as a captain. So, what can we expect from Marsh this time around?
Yeah, well, I think he's going to do a good job. I think he's captain before for WA and domestic duties, and for the Big Bash for the Scorchers over the years. So he's no stranger to captaincy, Mitchell Marsh, and the reason they gave it to Marsh was because they didn't want to burden Pat Cummins. He's done everything in the last few months into a year.
Yeah,
Obviously, World Cup winning captain last year. So,
yeah,
Marsh, he did well in South Africa where they won 3-0 last year, Australia. In that
yeah,
series, he was captain. They won 3-0. So he did a good job there. Everyone, likes Mitchell Marsh. Obviously, he's a great team guy. So I think he'll do well as a leader and put his own stamp on this team. And, he'll do a good job. I don't think he'll be burdened by the captaincy. I think he'll relish it. And you've got Cummins there for support anyway. If he needs help, Cummins is always there to lend a hand. So, he's in good hands, and I think he'll do a good job leading the team in this tournament.
yeah, definitely. And looking at this squad, there was one exclusion from this squad, which was Jake Fraser McGurk, which we should discuss because we know that he had a very good IPL. But as we know, even I think the selectors said that they analyze picking the squad based on their performance in the last 2 to 3 years. But Jake Fraser McGurk has been doing recently well. And we've seen Warner's form kind of declining a bit towards the IPL and also in the past year, if I feel so. Your thoughts on Jake Fraser McGurk not being included in the squad? Do you support what the selectors have gone with, or do you think that Fraser McGurk could have been X factor?
I think it was a bit unlucky, as most people would have said, not being selected because he's done so well in the Big Bash and the IPL he took off for the Capitals. But I can understand why they went with Warner because of experience, and David Warner's been there, done it. He was there in 2021 when the team won in the UAE. So they've gone with experience. Jake will get an opportunity in the future. He's obviously a part of the reserves. So if there's an injury, he'll come in. So he will get his chance in the future, but he will be unlucky to miss out. But I can understand why Australia went with David Warner as the opener, and you've got other options as well. So I can see why they went with Warner instead of Fraser McGurk. But a lot of people would say, yeah, it's he should have been in straight away after what he did in the IPL. But maybe on the surfaces in the Caribbean, they wanted to go with David Warner, who's got more experience, and obviously David Warner's been there and done it. So
Yeah,
yeah, it is what it
absolutely.
is. But he'll get his opportunity in the years to come. That's for sure.
Absolutely. We've got Aman here saying, do you think it was an injustice for Fraser McGurk to not be selected after his great IPL performance? Well, I think we already discussed it, and I think Jack already mentioned on that, so we don't have to go on to that again. But talking about the squad in general, Jack, I mean, we have Warner, and I think obviously Warner and maybe English opening. I'm not really sure. I feel that's where Australia might go, and Marsh coming at 3. But seeing this squad, how satisfied are you? Especially, I'm talking about the all-rounders also here. I feel like Cameron Green, Glenn Maxwell, Marcus Stoinis. Who do you think will play in the middle order first of all, Jack? Because there is this question over here between Green and Stoinis here. Because I feel like one of them might miss out over there. Because I feel like they will play both Josh English and Matthew Wade down that middle order, and then you have a Tim David as well in that middle order. So in between, I mean, will you play both Cameron Green and Marcus Stoinis, or will you exclude either Stoinis or Green?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Obviously, both of them didn't really have a great IPL this year. Indifferent IPL for both of them, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see which way they go, Australia, in terms of who they leave out. Probably, I think many people would say probably you leave out Stoinis and play Green based on Marcus Stoinis's returns in international cricket. He's been quite poor in terms of his scores in T20 cricket for Australia over the last few years. So they'll definitely go with Green, I think. Younger, the future. It's always good to have options. It's always good to have a Marcus Stoinis, or because Mitchell Marsh won't be bowling because he's got that hamstring injury trying to come back from that. So he'll just play as a batter and not as a bowler. So, and Green's bowling's, come on. He's done really well in the Test arena, and T20 is a bit different, but it's always good to have a tall bowler who can bowl and get some reward. So probably, if it was me selecting the team, I'll probably go towards Green than Stoinis, just purely based on what Marcus Stoinis has done over the last couple of years for Australia in T20 cricket. But that's up to the selectors. Whether or not they go with that for tomorrow's game against Oman will be another question.
Absolutely, yeah, you summed up really well. Let's talk about the fast bowlers, Jack, because that is the prominent talk that we are going with Australia cricket, especially with Mitchell Starc, because he had a bad first half of IPL, I would say, but when it mattered in the playoffs for Kolkata Knight Riders, he really peaked and he really performed well. And then obviously we have Starc, Hazlewood, Nathan Ellis, and obviously Pat Cummins is obviously going to be in the playing 11, it's no doubt. But who would you prefer between Josh Hazlewood and Nathan Ellis, Jack? Because we know Nathan Ellis is a gun bowler. He can bowl at 140, 145 kilometers per hour. And we know in US pitches, generally, if you bowl with speed and accuracy, you can obviously, trouble the batters. We saw that day in New York with Enric Nokia, with the way that he was bowling with accuracy and with the length that he was bowling. So between Hazlewood and Ellis, depending on conditions, would you change either of them, or do you think Hazlewood is surely a starter in this playing 11 for Australia?
Yes, that's an interesting question, isn't it? I think Australia will go with Josh purely because Cummins and Starc and that combination's done so well over the years. So I think they'll go with Josh Hazlewood. He bowled well in the warm-up match against Namibia. That was a pretty good spell that he bowled against them. Be it against Namibia and be it was a warm-up match. But still, it just highlights the quality of Josh Hazlewood. Nathan Ellis, a pretty good death bowler. And that's something that Australia needs, probably. They are lacking a deaf specialist when it comes to T20 cricket, because we saw in the last T20 World Cup in Australia, they really struggled with that. So it's something that they need to have in this, World Cup. Obviously, the bowlers that they have, Cummins and Starc, had pretty good IPLs. They took wickets. Josh Hazlewood didn't play in the IPL this year. Nathan Ellis did, I think, from memory, and picked up some wickets. So that they're all capable. But yes, if one of them has to probably leave or miss out, it'll probably be Josh Hazlewood for Ellis, just purely based on that T20 specialist sort of role. But the selectors will make that decision. But it depends, conditions and the makeup, whether Australia going to play 2 spinners in the Caribbean because of those surfaces. All these different variations of teams. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but he's been unlucky for a few years, Nathan Ellis. He deserves an opportunity, but obviously Cummins and Hazlewood and Starc, you're not dropping them, who have done pretty well for Australia over the last few years.
Absolutely. And talking about the 2 spinners also, I want to talk about the second spinner that they've chosen. Obviously, it's Agar that they've chosen, a left-arm orthodox spinner. He's been on the lines for a bit, and he's been in the reserves as well. But when you got a Mitchell Swepson, when you got a few other spinners, maybe a Kuhnemann could be an interesting option for Australia, and they've gone with the experienced Agar. Your thoughts over that? Don't you think was that a wise choice, first of all, from Australia to go back to Agar? Like when you have other spinners emerging from Australia right now, especially in the Big Bash, we've seen Mitchell Swepson is a option that Australia could have gone for a leg spinner. But don't you think, because of, Australia picked him just based on his action? Don't you think so, Jack?
Yeah, I think they've gone back to Agar purely based because Agar's got that experience. He's played for Australia for quite a few years. Then Mitchell Swepson's done well in the Big Bash. He was a part of the T20 side for a bit. I'm pretty sure he was in the 2021 T20 World Cup squad as well when they won in the UAE, and he was Swepson. They've gone back to Agar purely based on what he's done before, and obviously Adam Zampa's the main spinner. Yeah. But Agar may not play. Depends, because you got Glenn Maxwell who can bowl good off spin. He's quite handy, Glenn, and we saw that in the World Cup last year at times. So it's an interesting selection. A lot of people will probably say, probably should have got another spinner than Ashton Agar, maybe, but how many of them are coming through the ranks? That's the question. You don't have too many to choose from. So they've gone with Agar, and he's more than capable to do the job if required. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been selected.
Absolutely. From Northern Districts, we'll take the comments. Why not 2 proper spinners in playing 11? Ashton Agar, left-arm spinner, plays a key role in these pitches. We saw how Keshav Maharaj or Akil or Gutesh Moti did. Your thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, that's a valid question there. Yeah, you want 2 spinners that can do the job and know what they're doing, rather than have a makeshift spinner. But that's the way that Australia's gone. That's what they did in the World Cup last year. They didn't have a second specialist spinner. They only had Adam Zampa, and they went with Glenn Maxwell. So that's what they're doing again, relying on Maxwell to bowl some overs here and there if they do go with a side that doesn't require 2 spinners. Or, if they do need 2 spinners, then Ashton Agar is more than capable to do that. So, it's an interesting question. But that's just the way that Australia's gone for this T20 World Cup in the Caribbean, and different venues have different conditions and different pitches, and all the like of that. So, it's other teams have gone down that route, but Australia have gone down to a different route. But it has worked before, so it may work again.
Absolutely. What would be your likely playing 11, Jack? Seeing in this 50 this squad right now, what would be your playing 11 right now? Yes, it could change based on conditions and all, but what would be your most likely playing 11?
We'll probably have Warner and Head at the top of the order, and then you have Marsh at 3. So Warner, Head, and Marsh. That's your top 3 there. And then 4, you have Maxwell. Obviously, he may bat at number 4. He may, have him at 4.
Yeah.
And then you have 5, 6, and 7. Could be Tim David, Josh Inglis, and maybe Matthew Wade, because they do like Wade, Australia. And he's done pretty well in T20 cricket, Matthew Wade. So that's your 5, 6, and 7. Then obviously you have the usual suspects with your bowling. Obviously you have Cummins, Starc, and Hazlewood, and then you have Zampa.
Zampa.
That's probably my likely 11, but it depends on what they expect in Barbados on the pitch. A couple of games have been played there. The pitch seems to be slow at times, as it usually is in Barbados. So they may go with two spinners, or they just may go with the pace attack and just have one spinner and rely on Maxwell to bowl a couple of overs to spin, which is perfectly fine in itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good playing 11. And also thoughts on Travis Head and his role also in this 2020 World Cup, because we've seen how, explosive his starts were with Sunrisers Hyderabad, and the way that he approaches the game is really very interesting, because, he really likes to accelerate from ball one. And we saw that tactic work in most matches, except for the fact that he struggles a bit with spinners. He has some weakness with spinners. I don't know, for some reason, if the ball turns, he sort of struggles. I think that's a weakness that he has to improve on, I feel, if he wants to be a brilliant batter in 2020 cricket, especially if, teams decide to bowl spinners in the power play. But your thoughts on Travis Head and, the way that he's been changing in all three formats, the way that he approaches in all three formats, because it's very interesting. That aggressive mode that Travis Head has right now is really, really interesting for other teams, to obviously learn, and, obviously because it's very difficult for teams to get him out with the way that he approaches in each format. So your thoughts, Jack?
Yeah, he's going to be important for Australia in this T20 World Cup, that's for sure. I had him as a leading run scorer for the tournament in my predictions because of what he did in the IPL.
Yeah.
For the Sunrisers Hyderabad, he was on a different planet, 500 runs, and no one could really stop him once he gets going.
Yep.
He's going to be important with Warner, set the tone, set the foundation for Australia to get off to a good start with their batting, and then obviously the rest will follow him. Yeah, he's an aggressive player. He's a positive player. He doesn't care. That's sort of the attitude that he has now. That's why he's done so well. Probably the same with Mitchell Marsh as well, same mindset. Just go out there and back yourself. And Pat Cummins gave Travis Head that belief of just go out there and play your way. We won't begrudge you for that. We won't be angry if you play a rash shot or get out cheaply. We won't be angry about that. That's just how you play. We just want you to play like that because we know you can win games off your own bat. You can change the course of a match in a couple of overs, which he can. And we saw that in the World Cup final last year when he chased down India's target with Labuschagne in that partnership and scored that 100.
Yep.
So he can change games in a matter of minutes. So, he's very capable. I think he's going to do pretty well for Australia in terms of really setting big totals for Australia and setting the foundation and the platform. So he's definitely going to have a big role to play. Obviously, with David Warner not firing as he would have liked coming into this tournament. So Travis Head will need to pick up and, carry the baton on, so to speak, to, get Australia off to an aggressive start. But as I said, I think he'll relish the opportunity to, bat at the top of the order. He wasn't a part of the last two T20 World Cups, and now he's in favour with the T20 side again. We know what he's done in the Big Bash for the Strikers. So, I can't wait to see what he can do in this tournament. I think he's going to achieve a lot of great things.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, final thoughts before we go to other team squads as well and analyze Group B. Thoughts on Tim David actually, and his weakness towards spin, because I saw like an analysis like he really struggles against spin, like his average is about 15, but when it comes to fast bowlers he has a pretty good average. But your thoughts, like most of these batters actually having weaknesses against spin, apart from maybe Matthew Wade and Marcus Stoinis in that middle order. For some reason I don't know, Tim David usually struggles with spin in the last 2 years. So your thoughts, especially if you come to pitches like Barbados or even any pitch in West Indies, you'll have to face with spinners mostly, maybe 8 to 10 overs. So how do you think Tim David will cope with that, and how do you think he will approach, because of his sort of weakness with spin? I hope he has worked that out. But anyways, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's the case with the Australian team, is that you have your weaknesses against spin. It's no surprise. It's happened quite a long time now.
Yeah.
So they'll definitely need to work on that those individuals concerned. But with Tim David, yeah, I think he'll just play his natural way. I think he'll just be aggressive and be positive and look to be proactive against the spin. Don't get bogged down. Look to score. If you can't hit a boundary or a six, then look to rotate the strike and keep the scoreboard ticking. You know, you don't want to be static. You know, if you're static and you let the spinner bowl 2-3 deliveries straight at you, then more likely you're going to have one with your name on it. So I think for him, it's just to be proactive, keep the scoreboard ticking, and then if the spinner bowls you a bad ball or a step hit, then you punish it. You know, so all those basic things, and I think Tim will be all right if he does that. And same with the other players concerned who do have a weakness against the turning ball. But yeah, you know, for Tim, just don't change much really. Just keep it simple, play your way. You know what you're doing. You know, he's been around the circuit for a while now. Played a lot of T20 cricket. He's faced a lot of spin, so he knows what he needs to do. So I think he'll be okay if he can just do the basics. And if he does that, then he'll probably have a good T20 World Cup.
Yep, definitely. All right. I think we spoke enough of Australia. We'll come back to Australia in a bit. But let's go back to England, Jack. And I think that they are going to be the team that Australia we are going to eye on, obviously. But they are also the defending champions as well, which is why we want to do a Group B squad analysis as well. And since Jack knows the teams very well as well, so we thought of discussing about Group B in general as well. So coming to Jack once again, we have Josh Butler going to captain the England team once again, you know, just like 2022. They are the defending champions as well. But your analysis towards this squad, you know, they've got Jofra Archer back after maybe 1 or 2 years. You know, you have Chris Jordan, Mark Wood, Adil Rashid, and we obviously saw the way that they were playing yesterday as well. So they have quite some interesting additions to their team, especially having Harry Brook. They have even Ben Duckett and Tom Hartley been picked, I think, after a long time. So your overall analysis on this England squad?
Yeah, it's an experienced squad. A lot of experience in T20 cricket. Most of the squad were a part of the squad that won 2 years ago in Australia when they defeated Pakistan in the final.
Yep.
And they've chosen a squad that has T20 specialists and people who excel in T20 cricket. And obviously, hopefully that will bring a change of mindset for England. Obviously, we all know what happened last year in the World Cup. They were horrible. They were poor, really. They were absolutely poor. Didn't play the way that we associate with England under Owen Morgan, and under Butler and Matthew Mott as captain and coach. Hasn't quite been smooth sailing. And, you know, a lot of pressure from everyone around the cricket world to England, especially those at home supporting England, of winning this tournament and going back to back. But we know in T20 World Cups, you don't win back to back titles all that often. It's always a different winner. Exactly. So the squad, you know, experience, more than capable, good batting, bowling. So they've got all bases covered. It's whether or not it can come together in a complete performance. And what we saw yesterday against Scotland, Archer was a bit rusty. Jordan went to the cleaners, you know, and there's some problems there if that is a trend. If you know, that happens in the next game against Australia, which they have to win because the game against Scotland was obviously washed out and was a no result. That will be a concern for them if they can't take wickets early in the power play, which they failed to do against Scotland yesterday in the small sample size that we got. So that is a concern. Other than that, you know, whether or not they've got that belief that they can, you know, make a charge and hopefully win, that's another question. So I think the question is, does this squad have the mentality and mindset to go out there and play?
I think we just lost Jack, and we'll wait until he comes. Or is it my signal or is it his signal?
Am I?
Oh yeah. I thought it was my signal. Yeah. You can continue. Yes, Jack. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
As I was saying, it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of their mentality and mindset, and what Butler does as captain and Matthew Mott as coach to rally the team
Yeah, very
together. So those
absolutely.
are some of the thoughts I have on
Yeah.
England's squad and potential in this tournament.
Your thoughts, especially of Phil Salt, because he had a very good IPL as well before he had to go for duties, and he's been really, really prolific open, and he wasn't in the squad for the last 2020 World Cup. So, your thoughts towards Phil Salt and the impact that he can do, especially on these pitches. I think he was, I mean, the 2010 World Cup that England won. Actually, he was a schoolboy, and he was in Barbados for some reason. I really didn't follow that up, but still, I think he likes the West Indies a lot. But anyways, your thoughts towards Phil Salt, and what he can do, because he had a couple of good series against West Indies actually when England went and played in West Indies. So your thoughts, what Phil Salt can do?
Yeah, he's a pretty handy player. He's got a few T20 centuries in that series you speak of against the West Indies. He picked up I think a couple of centuries, I think, in that series.
Yep.
And obviously he's lived in Barbados when he was growing up, and
Yeah.
he knows the conditions well. Yeah, he's definitely going to be important for England in terms of opening the batting with Butler and setting the tone and foundation. And I think he's really relishing the opportunity to, be a part of this England team on a regular basis. Whereas before he was in and out, and he didn't really have a good run at it. Whereas now he can have a good run and, see what he can do over this tournament. So I think he's definitely going to be important for England in terms of setting the tone, the foundation, with Butler at the top of the order, and making sure that England get off to good starts when they are batting and capitalising on the power play. And we saw what he did for the Kolkata Knight Riders in this IPL, and he had a pretty good tournament. So he's definitely going to be one of the important players for England, that's for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's come into also I want to speak a bit about Harry Brook as well, because Harry Brook has been going through a tough phase. Obviously he said that he withdrew from IPL because of his grandma passed away. Hope he's doing well at the moment in terms of that, but he was not in good terms when it comes to his mental health, and then he went back to county cricket, and he was performing over there. But anyways, your thoughts on Harry Brook, because I think that's one, the number 4 position, that is where England sort of struggle a bit, I would feel. So, your thoughts on what Harry Brook can do, because he's a very exciting prospect. If he gets going, he really can score runs at a quick strike rate. So, your analysis on Harry Brook, his recent hasn't been good, but what can you expect from Harry Brook in this 2020 World Cup?
Yes, that's true. He is a very dangerous player when he gets going, Harry Brook. He's more than capable of, scoring runs, and we've seen that. And previous times he's played for England in Test cricket and the like. So he is capable of scoring quickly, and no doubt in T20 cricket, everyone's predicted him to do well in this format as well.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see where he's at in terms of his mental state. Of course, he's gone through a tough time, and obviously he's doing well, which is fantastic, and playing cricket again, which is fantastic for him. And hopefully he can, do well in this tournament, perform well, make some good contributions to the team when it comes to the bat. So, yeah, I think for him, it's just about playing his natural game. I think don't change too much. Keep doing what you've been doing. That's worked for you. And that's that aggressive mindset under Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes, of course, in the Test side for England. Just keep doing that in the T20 format. It's no different, really. So he'll probably do that in this T20 World Cup and look to carry on with that mindset and mentality. And hopefully it will bring good results for him with the bat, hopefully, and for England.
Absolutely, yeah. Also, I want to touch a bit on Sam Curran as well, because Sam Curran, was doing really well in the IPL. Actually, the way that he led all the years Punjab Kings, the team didn't do well, but I was much impressed with Sam Curran's batting, actually. So, do you see like England actually, using him as a floater in certain situations if certain wickets fall down? Because we saw Sam Curran batting at number 3 and number 4 for Punjab in the IPL, and we saw he was scoring runs. I think for one match he scored a half century, if I'm not mistaken, 60 plus runs, and won the match also. So Your thoughts on how Sam Curran is going to play in this 2020 World Cup, because it's going to be interesting, because his bowling also is sort of, he's a very capable bowler. Obviously, we know his capabilities, but your thoughts on Sam Curran, especially, because we don't have Ben Stokes. Obviously, Ben Stokes is a clutch player, but he has withdrawn from the 2024-2020 World Cup due to focusing on Test cricket. So, how can Sam Curran actually fill the void of Ben Stokes, Jack?
Well, I don't think you can replicate him. No one can.
Yeah, definitely
When
not.
it comes
Yeah,
to Ben
but
Stokes, no one
in terms
can.
of some sort of,
Yeah, in terms of some capabilities with the bat and ball, he can.
yeah,
We've seen that from him in the past. Obviously, the World Cup a couple of years ago, he was the player of the tournament and leading
yep,
wicket taker,
yep,
and he bowled well in the final. So he's
yep,
capable of doing it, Sam. He's going to be important for England, obviously, with the ball, taking wickets up front. He tends to bowl towards the end of the innings as well, the death overs, and he's done pretty well there in the past, so he's got a role to play there. With his batting, coming in late down the order when England needs some runs, he's going to be crucial there. England may float him up the order. They may push him up if circumstances require someone of his abilities with the bat or someone to get things motoring and moving, then yeah, why not? So that's probably going to be his role if England do go down that route. But he's definitely going to be an important player, certainly with the ball and with the bat as well. Getting those
yep,
runs and also getting those wickets in the death overs. Obviously, as we've talked about before, with Archer and Chris Jordan, obviously not really performing as well. Then you've got Mark Wood, who can go for some runs. And he, is going to be very important, Curran, in terms of, keeping that bowling attack together and getting some wickets if needed. If England do find it a bit difficult with the ball. So he's definitely going to play an important role, and hopefully he can have a better T20 World Cup than he did in the IPL for the Punjab Kings, who didn't quite have a great IPL. So we shall see what happens with Sam Curran.
Yeah. Also want to touch up on the spinners also of England in this squad. They have Adil Rashid, the likes of Adil Rashid. They have Moeen Ali. They have Tom Hartley as well. So your thoughts on where they will fiddle with the playing 11, especially with the spinners. You have a Moeen Ali, you have Adil Rashid, and they are quality spinners as well. So how do you see the spinners of England going? And do you think it was the right choices? Obviously, Adil Rashid has been, I think I'm not sure whether he's currently also number one 2020 ranked bowler, but if he is, it's really good. So how do you see the spinners going to do well in this 2020 World Cup?
Yes, well, that's going to be important for England as well. Their spinners, of course. If their faster bowlers can't take wickets, then their spinners will have to try and tie down an end and take wickets and pick up wickets. Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid, I think he played in the 2009 T20 World Cup in England. So he's been around for a very long time. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So even in the game against Scotland, they bowled okay when they came on to bowl. So they're going to be important, especially in the Caribbean on pitches that are going to turn. They will have to really lift themselves and pick up the wickets if the other bowlers do struggle to pick up wickets. And if England are in a bit of trouble, they need to pick up those wickets to slow the runs down or, defend a score. So, yeah, they're definitely going to be important, as all spinners are in this tournament for all teams, especially when you're in the Caribbean. So, they've got the experience. As I said, both of them can bat as well. They're capable with the bat. So you've got a good package there. So, yeah, definitely going to be important. So it'll be interesting to see how they go throughout this tournament, but definitely important for England in terms of their spinners picking up wickets and keeping the runs down as well. It's going to be pivotal if they are going to go on and win the whole tournament.
Yep, definitely. Jack, where do you see England ending up in this 2020 World Cup?
Well, that's an interesting question because at the moment, as where they are now, it's only one game, but they may not be going through to the next round, which is the Super 8 stage. because of the no result against Scotland, it puts you under pressure, really, because if they lose to Australia, and if Australia expect to win against Oman, Scotland and Namibia, which you think they will, and then obviously the game against England, if they win that, they're pretty much through anyway. But even if Australia drop that match against England, they're still going to go through anyway. So for England, it's important to win the game against Australia if they can, and then hopefully win the other games, and hopefully that's enough. But the game against Scotland has certainly set them back a little bit.
Yeah.
But anything can happen. You would think they should go through to the Super 8s and then eventually probably make it to the semi-finals. And then once you make it to a semi-final, anything can happen.
Yeah.
So I would think they should make the semi-finals, but it depends, obviously, whether or not they make it out of the group stage. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But if they do, I see them probably being at the semi-finals, maybe the final, maybe winning the whole thing. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, because they won it 14 years back as well in West Indies. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah. Maybe even I feel like they may go to the semi-finals. I'm not really sure. I feel definitely they go to the Super 8s despite of this, but you never know. With 2020 cricket, is really unpredictable. So my feeling is like maybe Super 8s or maybe semi-finals, unless South Africa dips a bit. But I'm backing South Africa and West Indies for semi-finals, so I'm really not sure where England will end up. I feel like Super 8s or the semi-finals, but really doubt in between that. So let's see how it goes for England. So good luck to their campaign. So let's touch a bit on Namibia and Scotland. I don't want to analyze much on Oman because we don't know much on Oman. So I don't want to go to analyze much about Oman, although we'll analyze on the Australia versus Oman match that is happening tomorrow. So let's just go and analyze a bit, just a few minutes on Scotland and Namibia. Let's just touch on to that. So coming to the Scotland squad, and we saw how Scotland played yesterday, especially the openers. George Munsey, especially very experienced player in this squad as well. But thoughts on Scotland, Jack? It seems to be really exciting, the players that they have, and they have pretty experienced players. I mean, been playing for like 4 to 5 years in this squad. We have Richard Berrington obviously leading this team. You have George Munsey, you have Matthew Cross, you have McMullen, Lees, Chris Greaves, some senior players playing in this team, and obviously 30 plus play in their age as well, and they're very experienced. So your thoughts on Scotland?
Yeah, they've got a pretty tight-knit squad. They've got full of experience and veterans. Their captain has been there for a while, Berrington. But they've got a squad that's more than capable of competing up against the world's best teams. They're probably out of all the associate nations in this tournament, which Scotland and the Netherlands you would think are the top two in terms of their quality. They've been around for a very long time. They've played in a lot of World Cups between them. So you expect them to be well up there. And what we saw against England yesterday, be it only a small sample size because of the weather, the openers did really well. They set a good foundation. They were none for 90 odd. They showed, good restraint up front, on a pitch that was a bit up and down in Barbados, in Bridgetown. They respected, Archer and Wood, and, paid respect to those good deliveries. And then when they didn't get it right with their line and length, they punished them. And there was some big hits. I think it was Munsey that hit a big six, hit the roof, and broke the solar panel on the stand. So that was a pretty hard hit. So that's good to see. It's good to see they've got some batters capable of firepower.
Yeah.
They've got an opportunity. Even though they didn't lose, they would think we should have won, if the game went on to its foregone conclusion, but we don't know what would have happened if the weather did not intervene. But they've got an opportunity. They'll say to themselves now, we've got an opportunity to, really play some good cricket here. If we can beat Namibia, beat Oman, you never know. We could be going through to a Super 8, and that will be big for Scotland.
It will all come to net run rate, obviously, and that Australia match that Scotland's going to face, whether they can go to the Super 8s or not right now.
Yes, definitely. The game against Australia will be tough, but if they can, win the other game against Oman and obviously Namibia, then they give themselves a chance. But yeah, if you're a Scottish supporter, seeing the performance against England, I think you'll be confident that the team could do well, and I think they should do well. And hopefully they can, surprise a few people if they can go through to the next stage. They defeated the West Indies in the last World Cup in the first round. They knocked them out, essentially, even though Scotland didn't go through to the next round in the last World Cup. But still, they showed some signs of good cricket there 2 years ago in Australia. And hopefully in this World Cup, they can do the same. So definitely, they should be confident and they should be backing themselves, I think.
Definitely, yeah. All right, let's go to Namibia as well. Let's touch a bit on Namibia as well. Obviously, we saw what happened in the Namibia versus Oman match, the innings that David Wiese played. But talk about Namibia, Gerald Erasmus captaining this team. They have JJ Smart. Wiese is there, very experienced player. Obviously, he's played for South Africa before joining the ranks of Namibia. Your analysis towards this Namibia team, because Trumpelman really did well, especially against Oman, especially in that power play overs as well, what you've seen. So your overall analysis on Namibia and the way that they've really grown up, in ICC tournaments and especially in associate cricket. I'm quite impressed with the journey that Namibia has come through. So your thoughts on Namibia?
Yeah, they've done pretty well. They did well in that game against Oman. The other day I was watching that, and they could have won it comfortably, and then they had a few stumbles towards the end, and obviously Oman had a chance to win as well. But they held their nerve. They took it to a super over, and David Wiese, he's been around for a lot of years, played for South Africa, and now playing for his country of origin, which is Namibia. And he, did well in the super over. He batted and bowled, and he put a good performance in there. They are capable of competing up against the big nations. We've seen that in the 2021 World Cup as well, and also in 2022 as well. They were able to, put in some good performances there in that World Cup in Australia. And this World Cup here, they're capable of doing the same, I would think. They're on top of the group at the moment, which is after one game. It's not bad to be on top after one game, but they've still got tough games to go against Scotland, obviously, and England and Australia, which are going to be tough. But you never know. They could knock off either Australia or England. And you probably think the game against Scotland will be tight, but you think they should do enough to win there. So they've got a chance themselves, just like Scotland. They've got an opportunity to really finish in the top two in Group B and go through to the Super 8s. I think everyone looking at this group was saying, well, Group A and Group B were fairly straightforward. Group C and Group D would be interesting in terms of who will go through because, those groups are pretty open. But no one expected Group B to be, this sort of open after the game against England and Scotland, which was washed out. So that changes everything. So, it's good to see. It's good to see. It's good to see that. It's good to see, associate nations like Scotland and Namibia have a chance of qualifying. You want to see that. It's good for the game, good for the growth. And I've spoken to a lot of people in associate cricket on the series I've done on the podcast.
Yep.
And they say the same thing. We just want to see associate cricket do well and grow and develop. And we've certainly seen that from these associate teams in this World Cup thus far. So, Namibia, good opportunity to go through. That they know they can do it. They've got that belief. It's whether or not they can hold their nerve against Australia and England. That will be the big test. If they can win one of those games, I think they're more than likely to qualify for the Super 8s, and that will be a fantastic thing to see. But there's a lot of cricket to be played until we get to that stage, of course.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, so I think let's touch a bit about Australia versus Oman, obviously happening in 10 hours time tomorrow. So obviously it's going to happen in Bridgetown in West Indies. So it's the first match for Australia. So we're coming back to Australia, by the way. So Australia versus Oman, how do you see this going? This is small analysis on the match before we wrap things up. How do you see it going, Jack? Do you think, especially on the pitches, like what you've seen in West Indies so far, should Australia go with 2 spinners tomorrow, or do you think, as you said, should they go with their pace attack, especially in West Indies against this Oman team, which they've not played? I think it's going to be the first time that both these teams play, but no disrespect to Oman, but it's a weak opposition. Opposition, obviously, it's the facts that we're speaking. So, your thoughts, Jack, tomorrow?
Yeah, you would think Australia should win, straightforward. I know the Oman captain had a few words to say in his press conference leading up to this match, saying that the spinners from Oman will cause problems to Australia. They probably will, but yeah, you would think Australia should be. They are a quality side. Oman is in the top 20 when it comes to T20 rankings, but Australia are just a class
It's
above
miles
everyone
ahead.
else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is a gap there. What I saw in the game with Oman and Namibia, Oman have some problems with their batting and bowling in terms of losing wickets and not executing with the ball. And up against an Australian team that's got destructive batters who are going to pounce on anything that's going to be short and wide, or miss. They won't miss those opportunities with the bat. They'll pounce on poor bowling, and their bowlers bowl 140 plus. And Oman, their batters haven't faced a lot of that bowling because they've played against other associate nations who bowl under that. So
Absolutely.
I think for Australia, I think the plan would be probably bat first, put a score on the board. If they put anything up, maybe 150 plus, I think that's enough, because we saw with Oman they were bowled out for 109. And also think about the net run rate as well. Put a big score on the board, bowl the opposition out for less. You get a good net run rate boost. And I think that would be the plan going into tomorrow's game. So I think they'll stick with the attack of Cummins, Starc, and Hazlewood play Zampa, and then you have Maxwell as the 2 spinners. I think that should be enough. I don't think it really matters if you play Agar or not. Maybe the game against England, you could be thinking about that, which is in Barbados as well.
Definitely.
But for this game against Oman, it's just about, let's just, get into the tournament. Let's just see where we go after that. So
absolutely.
I think that will be the plan for Australia tomorrow, is just to get the 2 points, and hopefully it doesn't rain. Fingers crossed.
Definitely, because too much rain is happening. So just take from the comments here. Krishna says, what if another washout between England and Namibia? Then Australia and Namibia may qualify in Super 8. Your thoughts, Jack, on this comment?
Yeah, that's an interesting question there. Yeah, that could be a possibility if you think about it. If there's another washout for England, and they don't pick up 2 points and they pick up only 1. So yeah, definitely that could be a potential outcome, maybe. But we don't know. We don't know what the weather's going to be in a few days' time. We don't know.
Definitely.
We don't know what the weather's going to be tomorrow. So it could be a washout between Australia and Oman. You don't know. Let's hope that's not the case. We want to see some cricket, and Australia want to get 2 points and top the group. So
absolutely.
Mainly the Australian fan coming out of me there, Pawan.
No worries. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I try to be neutral.
No, that's fine. I mean, you're allowed to say your thoughts on Australia. It's definitely fine, because that's why we brought you in to obviously talk about Australia and Group B. That's the reason why for you to express your thoughts. Yeah.
Yes. Well, hopefully that's the case tomorrow, and hopefully Australia do well, and they are the favourites. But but definitely Group B is definitely wide open now after what happened with Scotland and England. So it'd be interesting to see where the teams do finish at the end of the group stage in Group B, and who goes through. May come down to a net run rate situation. So we'll have to wait and see.
So prediction time, Jack. Just want to ask, obviously we're not going to ask about the result, but highest run scorer, highest wicket taker, and if Australia bat first, how much will they score?
Yeah, well, is that for the game against
for the game against someone? Yeah.
Okay. So well, I think Australia will, if you would think maybe 150 or above, maybe, as a prediction. Right. I just see the Oman bowlers struggling against quality batters and Head and Warner and Maxwell and that, and being under pressure and not being able to execute under pressure, as we saw against Namibia.
Absolutely.
So I think anything over 150 plus is a good enough score. It should be enough.
Yeah.
You don't want to set a lofty bar too high, otherwise you lose too many wickets, and many teams fall into that trap.
Definitely.
So yeah, that will probably be the case for a total. Leading run scorer, I'll probably go with maybe Travis Head. I think, first game of the tournament, I think he'll want to come out firing and get some runs early in the tournament, which would be nice for him.
Yeah.
And in terms of wicket taker, well, I'm going to say Mitchell Starc because, what an IPL final he had. So I think he'll be more than capable of taking probably 5 wickets, maybe. It's a possibility, He does do well against associate nations, Starc, in the past. He does pick up a lot of wickets. So I won't be surprised if he picks up a fifer or maybe 3 or 4 wickets. And then the other bowlers chip in as well. But yeah, those are my predictions for the game.
And then I'll give my predictions as well. Obviously, if Australia bat first, I think Australia will get 170 or 180. Definitely not the 200 plus that we've been seeing in IPL. Definitely not going to happen in these pitches in West Indies. But I feel maybe 175, 180. I feel against this Oman bowling attack. And highest run score, actually, I'm going to back Glenn Maxwell because, he's not being in good form, but we know how he turns up for Australia. So I feel Maxwell will have some contribution for Australia tomorrow. And I just want to back Glenn Maxwell with, how much hate and criticism he's been getting in IPL and, over the Indian fans and all. I just want, everyone to just forget about, Maxwell's recent form. And we know how sort of a beast he is with Australia, in the World Cup, what he did. So, gonna back Maxwell in this, and highest wicket taker. I'm actually gonna go with Josh Hazlewood tomorrow rather than Starc. I feel the slowness of the pitch will actually help Hazlewood, and I feel he'll pick a couple of wickets. So I'm gonna back Josh Hazlewood, and obviously Australia is gonna win. But coming to Jack once again, not going to be biased to anything. Like just your thought. It doesn't matter if you're biased or whatever. Where do you see Australia ending up in this 2020 World Cup?
Hopefully the final in Bridgetown come the end of the tournament in the final. Hopefully.
But do you see them being champions? Do you see them being champions with the squad they have?
Yes, I do. Because you can't buy World Cup experience. Name me one team in this T20 World Cup that's got multiple World Cup winners. Not many. You wouldn't say that about India, would you?
Nope.
Given that they haven't won a World Cup for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe about you may say that with England because they do have players that have won World Cups, but a team that's won multiple World Cups and it's got the same core group of players who've been there 3 times, like 2021 UAE, 2015 World Cup, and last year's World Cup. Most of the squad were a part of those 3 wins anyway. So that's why you should have Australia as favourites to win because they know how to win tournaments. We saw that last year in the World Cup. They lost the first 2 games. They came back and did what they did in the final against India. So I see them as champions. And it would be nice to see that after what was a disappointing World Cup 2 years ago where they didn't qualify for the semis. To be fair, it was a year after they won the tournament in 2021 and probably a bit of hangover maybe from that. And probably playing at home and the expectation. But this time around, they can't do wrong. They've won the World Test Championship, they won the World Cup. They want to win this T20 World Cup, be the first team to hold all those World Cups and tournaments concurrently. So at the same time. So, with the squad that they have, the experience, I do see them being as the favourites. And many people have said that as well. Of course, you've got other teams who can win the tournament, like England and New Zealand, South Africa, India, if they're capable, the West Indies. Anyone can win in T20 cricket, but hopefully Australia will be there. Mitchell Marsh lifting up the trophy and Australia getting their revenge because they played in that 2010 final against England and they lost. So they'll be hoping after 14 years they can finally get their revenge and hopefully win this T20 World Cup in the Caribbean, which will cap off a pretty good period for Australia.
Yeah, definitely. Also, Jack, before we wrap up this video, just some predictions. Who will be our four semi-finalists in this 2020 World Cup and potentially the finalists, according to you and according to your analysis, also watching on other teams as well right now?
Hmm. You put me on the spot there, pal. It's like choosing your favorite child. It's very hard. Well, out of the teams that I think, when I did my preview, I said Australia, India, England, West Indies, New Zealand, South Africa. Out of those 6 teams, I see them going through to the semis.
All right.
Because they've been there before. They've played pretty well in previous tournaments. Looking back at previous tournaments, that
Yep.
was my thinking.
Yep.
But if I had to narrow it down to 4, obviously Australia, India, and I'm going to say New Zealand, because always New Zealand always find a way to go through to the semi-finals.
Yep.
And I do have a soft spot for New Zealand, obviously.
Okay.
I
Yep.
do support them when I don't support Australia.
Yeah.
So those are the 3. One more, I'm going to say the West Indies. So I would be happy to see the West Indies be there.
Absolutely.
They're more than
Yeah.
capable of doing it.
Definitely.
So that would be my 4 semi-finalists, and then potential finalists from there. Maybe Australia and the West Indies. I know one of my listeners is currently over there in the West Indies watching this T20 World Cup. He'll be there for the final as well, watching a few Australian matches.
All
He
right.
said, "I hope it's Australia and the West Indies final." So I
Yeah.
said, "That's not bad. I'm going with that." So Australia and the West
Same.
Indies probably.
That was my prediction also before the 2020 World Cup started as well. Even I felt like West Indies can go all the way to the final, and I feel like they will definitely face Australia. Hopefully that happens. I mean, because the way that both the teams have been playing recently, it's been great, and especially Australia, you cannot obviously undermine them in any format. I mean, they are really really competitive, and they are obviously a good team in all 3 formats. I feel right now Australia. So yeah, even I went to the Australia West Indies finals. So hopefully, fingers crossed that happens. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much, Jack, for joining once again. It was a pleasure speaking with you and bringing along you to this video, to analyze on Australia and Group B also in general. So do subscribe to the WW podcast and do follow his podcast as well on Spotify and Anchor and on all other podcast platforms that Jack does on. So do subscribe to his channel and do subscribe to my channel as well, the Sports Breakdown. Do like, comment, and share. And we'll come in the next video, guys. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video, guys. Goodbye and good night.